I have this 15-year plan. Sam and I go our separate ways. I pursue my career in kinetic physics. Sam marries a vacuous hunk and has 6 vacuous kids. It's not working out, but she's reluctant to get a divorce.
Well, I raised her right, you know.
Finally, she can't take it anymore. There's a bitter divorce that leaves her shattered, depressed, and craving coffee. She wanders into a chock full of nuts, and there I am, dunking a powdered donut. She wipes the powder from my nose and falls hopelessly in love. We get married, I adopt her 6 kids, they all call me Pops. I win the Nobel Prize in physics, and we live happily ever after.
Gee, that's a lovely story, Mason. Yes. And it would be great to have you in a family, but what do you say? Let's get some sleep.
Yeah,
huh? Okay, pal.
All right.
Okay. Good night, Mason.
Night, Dad.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to
Ayo. Oh, hey.
the Who's the Boss podcast. I'm Tori.
I'm Kevin.
And we are here to rewatch and discuss every single episode of Who's the Boss. I'm so excited today because we have our very first interview.
Yes, we should get right to it.
Yes, let's go.
All right.
You may know him as Mason from Who's the Boss, but you probably also don't know that Adam Carl has been on pretty much every single popular 80s show from our childhood. I'll do a quick list. Benson, Family Ties, Cheers, Newhart, The Facts of Life, Charles in Charge, Life Goes On, Designing Women, and Hearts of Fire, which I started watching this morning.
I was
yes.
I saw it on the Amazon Prime.
Yeah, you did.
Hearts of Fire.
Please welcome Adam Carl. Hello.
Oh, hi. Based on my credits, people will probably think I'm like 75 years old.
Listen, you were very little.
I'm like, Benson, how old is this guy?
You were tiny on Cheers. How old were you on Cheers?
I was actually a little bit older than I look because I was always very small for my age.
Yeah, which is
I was
great.
I think I was 14 when I did that. So
okay.
I probably looked.
Wow. You really looked young on that. We just watched it
So I watched what we could get a hold of, which is Cheers, because I work for Paramount Plus. So we have that streaming. We're one of the very few people that stream Paramount Plus. So yes, we watched an episode of Cheers, and then I watched Family Ties.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and then this morning I found Hearts of Fire because I love John Ritter also anyway.
He was the best.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
I miss him a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm kind of curious, like how you got started acting. Were you a child? Like, was it your idea?
It was my idea. My parents thought I was nuts. So I grew up in Orange County, down about 10 minutes east of Disneyland, in the 70s, and I mean, from a very young age, like I remember writing a letter to the Mickey Mouse Club because I wanted to be on the cast of the Mickey Mouse Club, and getting some letter back saying, "Hey kid, you're on a waiting list," with a million other kids.
Right.
But it was always something I wanted to do, and then when I got into about 6th grade and I was doing, school plays and things, there was an ad in the newspaper. So this would have been 1982, maybe.
Okay.
There was an ad in the paper for an open call for a movie at 20th Century Fox. And they were looking for kids, my age, to be the lead in this movie with Richard Dreyfuss and Susan Sarandon. And it was called The Buddy System. It was not a successful film.
Okay.
It was sort of similar. I don't know if you ever saw Richard Dreyfuss in The Goodbye Girl, but it kind of had a sort of a similar vibe to that movie.
Okay.
And so of course my dad saw this ad in the LA Times and was like, "Hey, you should go." And I was like, "Yes, absolutely." And my mom was really "I'm so worried that you're going to get rejected and it's going to hurt your feelings." And, she was just so worried about protecting me from that. And I was like, "I don't care. It's fine. I'm not expecting to get it." So my dad's like, "I'm going to take him." So it was the day, it was a Saturday or something. It was the day I had a Little League game. So I went in my Little League uniform because I had to go to the game right afterwards.
Right.
And it was on the Fox lot on a sound stage, and they had set up a big, picnic table or something. And they were just taking kids in 7 at a time and sitting us all down and just sort of going down the line and asking us questions. And we had to fill out like a form, like, do you have an agent? What's your agent's phone number? That sort of thing. And I didn't have an agent, but my 6th grade teacher, her grown son had an agent in LA. And so she said to me, listen, if they ask you who your agent is, just tell them my son's agent's name.
Nice.
And so, I didn't know anything. So I did. And I write this down. And it turns out like this agent did not represent kids. He only represented adults. He had no idea who I was. And like basically called my parents and said, so your son apparently wrote my name down. I have no idea who he is. And by the way, he has a callback.
Nice.
And my mom made me like call him up and apologize to him
Oh.
for, putting his name down. And he just thought this was the cutest thing in the world. And he said like, look, I will represent you through this process. And maybe I've never represented a kid before. I'll see how it goes. And if it doesn't work out, I can recommend some kids agents to you. And I ended up getting like this process went on and on and on for this movie. I kept getting callback after callback, and they were whittling it down until by the end it was down to, and they were like, they were messengering screenplays to my house in Orange County for me. I'd never read a script before. Like this was all like super exciting. And like, it got down to me and one other kid. And that kid was Will Wheaton.
Oh,
wow.
Stand By Me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it was between the two of us, and it took like 2 weeks, and the head of Fox at that time was a woman named Sherry Lansing, and it was like taking a really long time for them to decide. And ultimately, because my character was not supposed to be Richard Dreyfuss's kid, he's supposed to be Susan Sarandon's kid, and I looked like Richard Dreyfuss, and Will looked more like Susan, and didn't have that Jewish energy. So that was one of the reasons, but also he was probably that better. So Will got the part, and I was disappointed, but like my mom's worst fears did not come true. Like I didn't fall apart or anything.
Right.
And then they called back maybe a week or so later and offered me like a very small role as a friend of his in like a Thanksgiving school pageant. I played an ear of corn. A big ear of corn costume, and that was like and so and I ended up doing that, and that was my first professional job.
Nice. Well, you should have been amazingly proud of yourself, because an open call, there was probably thousands of kids there,
it was
right?
pretty cool. I have to say it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's impressive.
And and that agent, he represented me for a little while, and then he decided like it's probably better if you're with a kid's agent, and he recommended someone to me, and I just sort of kept working after that. Like I never really stopped until I got later into my late teens.
Yeah. I know those when you go to the auditions, we've taken our children to a few different maybe commercials.
Yeah, when they were younger.
And then they would and then they were like, no, I don't want to. Yes, I do. They were wishy-washy about it. But I remember going, and it was like a cattle call. Like they pull them all in.
It really was. It was just like a room just full of kids and stage moms, and there was one stage mom that used to bring like hairspray and like do her kids' hair like in the room, in the lobby, and you're just going, this is awful.
I know.
And my mom, that was my mom's biggest fear, is that she was not a stage mother at all. And the best thing my parents ever did for me is when this all started, they sat me down and said, we're going to support you in this, and we'll drive you to auditions, and we'll take you, and we'll sit with you on the set with you. The minute this is more fun for us than it is for you, you're done.
Right. Yeah, that's great.
That probably was never fun for them.
Great thing they ever said. Never fun. I never got to that point where it was more fun for them.
Yeah.
I remember she would call me, Tori would call me in the morning, they have an audition tonight. Then it's like, okay, well, where? Down in Culver City, you have to be there at 5:30.
Right.
And then we're in the valley. Okay, well, I better leave it too then.
Right.
And you drive all the way down there through traffic for a thing that was
10
6
minutes.
minutes or whatever.
And
you
I was
drive all the way back home.
I was driving
that's all, that's
2 hours traffic home, and all that.
Wow.
But you wanted it.
I really wanted it, yeah.
And that is interesting, that because there was a recent article with Will Wheaton about how much he didn't want it.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that about him.
Yeah, well, so it was very recent, I think, just in the last week or so, where he said that he pulled a lot of his anger and sadness that he used in Stand By Me because of his own emotional abuse, and that that's
really interesting.
He never wanted to be an actor, and he was kind of pushed into it.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow.
I couldn't, but yeah.
I mean, I haven't seen him in many, many, many years, but we have, some mutual friends in common. And I liked him a lot back, when we worked on it together, but that was, 30 something,
Yes.
40 something.
Crazy.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about all right, you walk onto the set of Cheers, right?
Yeah.
Do you understand at that point how big Cheers is?
I do. And the story, I was terrified. And the reason I was terrified was because everyone on set so terrible. Whatever, I'll tell the story.
No,
it's
please.
a long time, and
Yes.
I don't think there are any secrets here.
Yeah.
Apparently, at the time that I did the show, Ted Danson and this was still when Shelley Long was on the show, and apparently they were not getting along.
Okay, that makes sense.
And the night before, the story I had been told, at least on the day, was that the night before, which had been their tape night from the previous episode, they had been there all night because there had been a big blowout and people going off to their respective dressing rooms and not coming out, the whole thing. So the vibe that day for a table read for the next, it was very tense, and people were really and I was of course hearing this and just absolutely terrified that this was going to be an awful, experience with mean people. And of course I saw none of that.
Okay, good.
Everyone was couldn't have been nicer and sweeter to me. And, it was a great week, but that moment was and I knew, of course I watched the show and I'm, I look up to all these people and,
right.
Luckily they were all really kind. So
the most the couple of times that I've been on a set, the most fun for me is just seeing the set. To just stand in the bar of Cheers, or
this is the set I grew up watching. This is
right.
Amazing. What am I doing here?
Yeah. Even one time I visited the set of Grey's Anatomy. I've never seen Grey's Anatomy, but just standing on it and being this is so cool. It looks so real, and none of it is real. I loved it.
Cool.
But your scene with Rhea Perlman is amazing. It was very cute.
I actually just found the other day, because God bless my mother, she was a pack rat and kept everything. So, in the scene, she takes Polaroids of me.
Yeah.
My mom kept those Polaroids.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So I have all of these really cool Polaroids still.
Oh, that's so great.
And during the rehearsals, because they would take them during rehearsals too. So I have some that are just, and it's me wearing a Cheers t-shirt that I probably got, a sweatshirt that either they gave me or I bought at the studio store or something.
Right. So do you remember your audition for Who's the Boss?
I don't remember the first one.
Okay.
The casting director at the time was the late, great Vicki Rosenberg. And she was sort of someone who was really good to me over the years and very sort of a champion. And she cast me in a few shows. So I don't know if that was the first one or if I don't know quite what the order was. Okay. So I don't remember actually auditioning for it.
So because I was wondering if you knew going into it that you would be on 3 episodes, or if
I did not. And there's a very good story about that.
Oh, okay, great.
Oh, great.
This is good.
All right.
So I do Big Man on Campus, which is you guys fairly recently.
Yeah.
And that was the first one. And then I got a call one day from a friend of mine who was on the crew and was in the room when this supposedly happened. And she said to me, I think you're going to be on the show again. And I said, well, what makes you think that? She says, well, at the table read this morning, we finished the script and Tony got up and he was really angry. And he said, this is terrible. This is unfunny. Who wrote this crap? Threw the script, said, bring back Mason, and stormed out. And I was like, what? She's like, I'm just telling you what happened. She's like, so maybe you're going to come back soon.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
That the next day, my agents called and said, so Who's the Boss wants to check on your availability for next week? I was that fast. I was back. And it was supposedly because of Tony and his insistence that the character come back.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and what's great is you and Tony have such great chemistry.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
Yeah, the first episode, because we're going to cover three teenagers and a Tony.
3 teens and a Tony or whatever.
Yeah,
that's the next
which
one.
is which this interview is going to go with. And in that one too, I'm surprised that it wasn't more than 3 episodes even, because you guys had a really good rapport.
Felt like more than 3. Like I'm always reminded that it was only 3. It feels like such a big part of my life.
Yeah.
And at the time that it happened, I would get like recognized a lot from, because the show was, it was a hit.
Yeah.
Especially on like if it was the day after an episode had just aired. And if I was anywhere where there were like a lot of people gathered, like it was like Disneyland or a movie theater, people would recognize Mason, which I of course hated. I was like super uncomfortable and embarrassed about it, because if 1 out of 100 people recognize me, the other 99 are like, who's that asshole? Like, why is he? So I felt stupid. I'd be like, I'm nobody. Don't. There's nothing to see here. And I remember once being in a movie theater with my parents, and like some little girl walked over to me and she said, are you Mason on Who's the Boss? I was about to say, oh no, that's not me. And my mother goes, he sure is, honey. and the little girl turns to about like 20 people she's with and goes, it's him, come on. And like a whole thing of people, and I'm like mortified, like hiding my face. And
that little girl was me.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Well, I still had that autograph. No, but so it did feel like a little bit more like 3 episodes. And in the third one, which you guys will get to, I think, next season.
Yes.
It really is mostly a me and Tony thing. It's not a Mason and Samantha, it's a Mason and Tony.
Right. Yeah, I haven't rewatched that one only because I'm really trying not to rewatch until we get there. Yeah, so it's a little fresher, but yeah. So that was my question too. Like so at this point you're in high school, right?
I was 16 and 17, I guess, when I did both those episodes. So
does being on TV shows help your social standing or make it harder?
That's really an interesting question. I'm not entirely sure, because growing up, I was very small for my age. And I felt like, like any shrimpy kid, I was, bullied a little bit, but nothing terrible. And I always had a lot of friends, but I felt, I think, a little bit like a social outcast a lot growing up, certainly in elementary school. And also like, I was like the one of the few Jewish kids in an overwhelmingly conservative evangelical Orange County, It wasn't exactly my, I felt out of place for most of my life there. And of course, once I got to LA and started acting with grownups, and I felt like I'd found my people and like my community. And so when I got to high school, I was working so much and doing like independent study, with studio teachers, that I ended up leaving my big, typical Orange County high school that had, however many thousand kids, and went to a tiny little school in Hollywood that Alyssa had actually also gone to, which catered to kids who were actors. There was 35 students from ages from grades 7 through 12. So it's this little 3-room school.
Wow.
We did school for like 3.5 hours a day. And they worked closely with the studio teachers to do sort of, give you like independent study and work with you on what you were doing. And so many of the kids I went to school with at that point then were actors like me.
Right.
And so of course, we all were like peas in a pod.
Right.
And my social life. And also, that was the age, 16, where because my parents didn't want me driving back and forth to Orange County every night, I ended up getting a place with a friend. And so like here I was, a teenager with my own place.
Wow.
Living on my own, but still like going to school every day and not being a delinquent.
Right.
But living, it was still teenagers living by themselves. You can imagine.
Yes, that's amazing. It's a kid's dream.
It was
amazing. Yeah, it was great. So my social life was great at that point. I don't know what it might have been like had I stayed back in Orange County.
Right.
When I first started, like some kids thought it was really cool, and other kids would like basically want to be like, don't get too big for your britches, kid. You're still a little shrimp, but I'm still going to, put you in the trash can.
Aww.
So, there was a little bit of both, I think.
Right. So what did you think about the character of Mason? Like,
I loved Mason.
Yeah.
I have to say,
most
of the things I've done in my career, like I look back, I cringe a little bit. And especially if I watch it again and I think, oh my God, I could have been so much better and I was terrible. It wasn't funny. And that's one of the few that I still am proud of. You know, I liked Mason a lot as a character. And, you know, I was basically just doing a kid's version of a Woody Allen impression. Like that was my bad Woody Allen impression. And the line that I always say was from this episode to my girlfriend to make her laugh is like when Tony offers me the sleeping bag, and I'm like, is this down? Because I'm allergic to down. You know, like it's like Woody shtick.
Right.
Yeah.
Packing my underwear around my humidifier.
Exactly. And I think I got a sense early on that was sort of funny for a teenage kid or a kid to do. And so I would go into auditions, and that was sort of my default delivery. Like I would just sort of I'd go, you know what? If they're looking for something different, they're going to be looking for something different anyway. But let me see if this works.
Right.
And oftentimes it did. You know, it would get a laugh or whatever. It was something different than other kids were doing.
Yeah. Going back. Sorry. Going back to the episode we just did, or we're going to do. Again, the chemistry with you and Tony is really great. Like the way he's I don't know if it's scripted or whatever, but it's like he's always calling you Mace. Like, you know what I mean? Like you guys go way back.
And the forehead rubs. And
right. And it's almost like that you're his son.
That was just Tony. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
Tony,
that's what I figured.
I think it helped that I think he genuinely liked me, and I really liked him. And, you know, with Tony, it's like what you see is what you get. That's him. You know, he's very gregarious and he's very affectionate. And I mean, I'll never forget every night right before taping, big kiss on the lips, you know, and it was just this, you know, Italian, affectionate, or gregarious thing. And I loved it. I mean, it was great.
Yeah, we have heard quite a few stories about Tony getting angry on set or having blow-ups and stuff, but it seems like you had a different experience.
I saw like a little bit of it, but I remember hearing a story that was, you know, it got to the point where like with Alyssa and Judith, like, you know, they knew him so well, and it was such a thing. And when he would blow up, but quickly get over it, you know? And so I think if I remember correctly, he would like have one of those moments where he would like get upset, and they would like, Judith and Alyssa would be like, that was like, what would you say, like a 7.2 on the Tony scale? And they would just like, do that bit, and he would laugh, and it would all be like, you know, blown over, you know?
Right. So can you tell me a little bit about like the process. So like you get the script, and then there's a table read and the rehearsals. So
it starts with a table read, and back then it was like that was all you did that day. Like you did the table read and you went home. It was fantastic, you know. Right. And you wouldn't really start rehearsing until, you know, let's say that was a Monday, you don't start rehearsing on Tuesday. And Tuesday you just start blocking it. So I have a person who's in the background now.
Hello, person.
That would be Sarah walking around there.
Hi, Sarah.
Hello.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I won't.
No, you're fine. Yeah. We're very casual here.
We're in an Airbnb right now because our house has been being renovated for the last 10 months. So we were placed at the moment. But,
wow.
It's a whole thing. But then Tuesday you would start like getting on its feet and blocking it, and then maybe, you know, and then Wednesday comes and you continue to do that and refine it and run through it. And by the end of the day, then the network comes, and the network sits there and watches the run through at the end of the day and gives notes. And then, so you come back on the next day, and maybe there's like all kinds of changes. You know, there's lines have been things have been punched up because they've done rewrites based on the network notes. And then usually Thursday would be like camera blocking day, where it would just be about getting all of the camera moves down and getting all the blocking. And so it was a more technical day, but then you'd still run through it for the network again at the end of Thursday. And there'd be a whole new round of notes. There'd be like new pages, you know, Friday morning, the day of the taping, that you'd have to like work in. And then, you know, Friday night, you would tape it usually twice. You tape it for one audience, have dinner, come back, tape it again.
Okay.
And if it went on too long, on like the second taping, they'd like send the audience home, and you just keep going if they needed to get more stuff.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. But and that didn't always happen. Sometimes you just got it and it was quick and it was in and out and you're done, you know.
Yeah, we have heard that it was like one take, maybe two, as much as possible on Who's the Boss. Did you see? That
show was was one of those quick ones where you weren't there all night. It was just like, you did it, they got it, you're out. You know?
Right.
Wow.
It was a well-oiled machine for sure.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now, is it hard? It seems like you had a good rapport with people, but when you jump into a cast like that as the guest star, it's got to be sink or swim. Like if you don't keep up.
It is. And it's funny. You always feel, because you're like a guest in someone else's home.
Right.
And you're walking on eggshells a little bit until you get a sense of what the personalities are and how people are going to treat you. They were great. It always felt like going back home, when I would go back and do another episode with them.
Yeah.
Very warm, very welcoming, but you never know and by the time you sort of get your sea legs, the week is over,
right.
And you're done.
Right.
I can remember doing one show where the joke I've made is I was in a scene with this actor and I still haven't met him, because even though it was like his show and he was the star, he didn't do what most stars do, which is sort of they act like a goodwill ambassador for the show, and they're very welcoming and very.
Mm-hmm.
He was just sort of distant, and I never really talked to him between takes, and it was just sort of like I was there, but never really felt like I even met the guy.
Wow.
That sort of thing.
Quick question about your spot on Family Ties.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I watched this. Kevin didn't see this one, but you play a young. Oh shoot! What is the dad's name? Stephen.
Yes, young Stephen Keaton.
Yes.
Young Michael Gross.
Right. So all of your scenes were so removed. So did you interact with the cast at all in that situation?
Did, yeah, because we were there together all week.
Okay.
And when you're rehearsing these scenes, the scene right before might have been them reminiscing before the flashback or something, and the scene right after might be them. So you're all still right there.
Oh, I see. So they really did do all of those in front of the studio audience.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. Gotcha.
And in fact, at the time that I did that, Michael J. Fox was shooting Back to the Future, and I can remember he was constantly going back and forth throughout the week.
Wow.
And was exhausted, as you might imagine, trying to still do the show and film at the same time,
Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. And I was also doing, because as a kid, you're doing 3 hours of school with the studio teacher. So Tina Yothers and I would be in school together,
right.
Sitting in a room doing our homework or whatever with the same studio teacher.
So did you have to do that on all the shows? So when you were on Who's the Boss, you would have to do school with?
Do school always at least 3 hours a day. And, some kids would get around 16 years old would get emancipated so that they didn't have to do that. And I wasn't going to although I was living on my own, I was not officially emancipated.
Right.
And I continued to go to school. But once the labor laws had changed. So, it was 3 hours. And the same person who was the studio teacher was also the welfare worker who was there just to make sure that you were being, treated okay and everything was safe. And then at 16, it changed at some point where you didn't have to have the welfare worker part anymore. So once school was done, they could go away and you could be there without them for the rest of the day. As long as you were signed out at the appropriate time for, you can only work a certain amount of hours.
Right.
And every so often, some production, some assistant director or producer would say, can you stay longer?
Right.
And no.
Right. And did your parents still have to be with you at that point?
At 16 now, they didn't have to be anymore. So
nice. Interesting.
And what's funny was that my mom, who was a teacher, ended up becoming close with a lot of my studio teachers.
Right.
And she ended up becoming a studio teacher herself and had a long career doing that, and a much more successful career than I had. She was working on Steven Spielberg movies, and she was Haley Joel Osment's longtime studio teacher, and they traveled around the world together and stuff. So it was cool. So my career sort of gave her a whole new second career.
Yeah. Okay, so I have to ask now, in this episode, Mason and Samantha kiss.
Yes, they do.
Was that your first on-screen kiss?
I think it may have been. For some reason, I may have not. Maybe not. For some reason, I kept having to kiss people in shows, which I never. It's very strange. And not exactly Robert Redford. And I'll never forget. When I was filming this episode right before, because I hadn't moved out yet, and my mom didn't want me driving back and forth all week, so I stayed with my best friend who was also a kid actor, whose name was Ryan Lambert. He was on Kids Incorporated back in the 80s, and he was living in his manager's guest house, which was right around the corner from Sunset Gower, where we shot Who's the Boss. And so I just crashed with him that week, two teenagers, in some guest house in Hollywood. And they were going to deliver the script to where we were, to his guest house. And he goes, I bet you can have to kiss her. And I was like, you are such an idiot. No way in hell Mason is going to kiss anyone. You don't even know what my character is. They would never write that. It was never happen. And then, of course, I get the script and start, nope, you're right. I got to kiss her. And I was a little nervous, of course, because it's always awkward, and you're like, do we do it in the rehearsal, or do we wait for the tape night? Like, how do we navigate this?
Yeah. What do you? I would imagine
we just started doing it in rehearsal.
Okay. Yeah.
It just was very natural.
Yeah.
Except for Tony kind of hovering and making sure it didn't go longer than 3 seconds.
Right.
Like, all right, that's enough.
Right. And it's a pretty,
we get it. Okay, we're good. Move on.
It's a pretty chaste kiss. Like, I could see if there's a kiss with a lot of tongue involved, you'd maybe not want to do that until the cameras are on.
I think Tony was protective of Alyssa,
Yeah. We've heard a few stories about that too, about how there were always guys coming around on set and stuff that he would want to shoo away, which I think is really sweet.
My friend Ryan actually tells that story a lot. He said he thinks he was one of those guys. Tony did not like when I was hanging out with Alyssa. He's like, he thinks he was like a band from the set,
Right. Probably. But I think it's probably what also made them have a good sort of chemistry, because he really did have, she jokes that she had 2 Italian fathers.
That's right.
Okay, so now when I was watching the episode, I realized that Mason could have possibly predicted the reboot, because he says to Tony,
the chock full of nuts story, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, listen, if they don't seize on that.
Yes.
It's very
I'm really hoping, okay, first of all, we don't know what's happening with the reboot, because
it kind of went into like
the news. It was like the big announcement.
It was like the announcement, and there was a couple of articles here and there, and now it's faded into obscurity.
But I really hope that they will bring back some guest stars for sure, and I think Mason would be a fantastic one, because
I can't disagree with you. But,
yeah, of course not.
But yeah, the whole chock full of nuts story. Come on, he says 30 years from now, I'm going to run into her somewhere.
Right. He actually says 15, but we'll go ahead with 30.
Okay. We'll go with 30.
Yeah. Well, it's because it's funny, because what does he say? He says 2003.
2003, because later on it comes up again. He says
I know, and that probably seemed so far in the future.
I'm going to kill myself.
And now it's so far in the past. I know. But yeah, so 30 years later.
30 years, like Jesus.
Yeah. Samantha walks into a Starbucks, because there are no chock full of nuts anymore.
But is Mason the barista, or?
I say he's a barista.
No.
Still working on his thesis,
No way.
No. Mason is some sort of
like a .com tech billionaire or something.
Exactly.
There you go.
App.
Right. Yes.
I think he would be good as like her kid's neurotic, godfather.
Right.
Platonic godfather, always making sure that things are, child-proofed in the house, even though they're teenagers, that sort of
right.
That would be great. So it's so great to talk to you. Thank you so much.
God, of course. I'm happy to, and I loved listening to the podcast. You guys are delightful.
Oh,
great.
Insightful as well.
It's our pandemic podcast.
It is our pandemic
started
podcast.
It. And
I learned something from listening to the podcast. I learned about the actor Robert Walden writing that episode that I did, which I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah, who would have known?
Yeah.
I actually reached out to a friend of mine who was a staff writer on Who's the Boss, and asked him what that was all about, and he didn't join the writing staff until later.
Until later.
He's like, that's weird. I have no idea how that would have happened.
Interesting.
Yeah, I've reached out to a couple of the writers. I heard back from Karen Wengrod, just asked a few questions about, because she would have been on when you did your stint there for sure. But yeah, and I was surprised to find that there were so many married couples who wrote for that show.
Oh, is that right? I knew there was a couple.
Yeah, because
there were several writing teams Yeah, and some of them were just like, two-guy platonic writing team.
Right.
I remember there were these two guys that I don't remember who they were, but every episode they would come up to me afterwards, like at the taping, and they'd say, "Hey, listen, are you by any chance available to do a spinoff?" And I go, "Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely,
yes."
Okay, great. Stay tuned." And then nothing. And so the second episode, I did the second episode, and the same two guys walked up to me and said, "Hey, listen, are you by any chance available?" I said, "Yes." And they're like, "Great, stay tuned." I'm like, "Okay, I don't think I'm going to be hearing from them." It was just the thing that they said to me every time I did.
Yeah, I mean, they were probably trying to get something.
They probably tried to get it going, and then nobody bit.
Yeah, but yeah, there was Bill and Sherry Steinkellner in the beginning. Prudence Fraser and Robert Sternum were married, and then Karen Wengrod and Ken Cinnamon were married. And I think there's another couple that comes in later on. But I thought that was interesting.
And it works for the show because it's all about essentially a marriage, right? So,
right. Yeah, it's a good family dynamic.
I could see that happening. Two writers, and then they meet. You know what I mean? And then they what I'm saying? Like it's the same thing. Then they become a team,
right?
Team,
Yeah,
it's kind of neat, actually.
And then they argue for the rest of their lives.
And the question is, are any of these writing teams still married to each other?
Probably not. But.
The ones that I found are, yes, they are. All three
really?
of them still are, I believe. Yes.
The other little piece of trivia I remembered that I could share about Mason was just that in the original script, so that would have been the Big Man on Campus script.
Mm-hmm.
The first draft, his name was, because it was Mason Peters later, but in the first draft, his name was Mason Petard. And my guess is it was a network note. Like, no.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It rhymed with things that were offensive and it seemed a little weird. And I think it was like, next thing I know, Peters in the second draft,
Nice.
And if Tony ever had to say it, he would have messed it up.
Right.
Because he messes up. We've noticed that, like...
Yeah, we have noticed that
the Internet Movie Database will list somebody's name, and he says it slightly different.
Yeah.
It was a few of those.
He was always, for the longest time, he was always Tony in everything he did.
Oh, yeah.
Tony on Taxi,
Tony
on
Banta.
Who's the Boss, Tony in, I think, the movies with, was it him and a chimpanzee? What am I?
Oh, yeah. We have not seen that, but I have heard of it.
Tony in that. Like, he was
Probably
always.
Was he Tony in Love Boat? I don't remember.
He was not Tony in Love Boat.
Oh,
we
he
watched that recently.
On Love Boat, he was Bud.
Oh, that's right.
We just watched that recently. Also on Paramount Plus.
So you work for Paramount Plus. That's very cool.
Yeah, I work for Viacom CBS, and I'm a product manager for the Paramount Plus streaming apps.
I did. So I worked on that lot a lot when I was a kid because, Cheers was on that lot. Family Ties was on that lot. And then I did a show called The Bronx Zoo with Ed Asner.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
And so there was New York Street at Paramount. And so it was like a inner city New York high school. And so I did like a whole season of that there.
Was that
like
Radford or TV City?
No, it was the Paramount lot on Melrose.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah. Oh, right, that makes sense because sorry, because I started off as CBS and now we're Viacom CBS, and now we're Paramount.
Plus.
And there was another show with Bess Armstrong called All Is Forgiven that I did like maybe a couple of weeks after I did Cheers. So it was, or vice versa. And they were like, the sound stages were right next to each other. Right. So that lot was sort of a home away from home for me when I was a kid. So I have fond memories of the place.
Now across the street from Sunset Gower is where Netflix is, right?
No. Well, Sunset.
Oh, no.
Sunset Bronson. I'm sorry.
Netflix.
Sunset Gower has the Netflix building.
Oh, okay. So they have the Netflix building.
It's on that
lot.
What
you see across the street from Sunset Gower was the Spaghetti Factory where I would get drunk in high school. So because they wouldn't card you.
Do you see what happened to that building?
I don't actually know what happened to that building.
Well, they built somebody came in and built a condo on top of it. It's like I don't know, it's probably 20 or whatever stories. And they said, whatever you do, you have to keep the Spaghetti Factory the way it was considered a
like a
landmark.
Landmark. Thank you. And so they said you can't change the facade, the outside. And they're like, great, that's fine, we'll do it. They leveled the whole. They ruined everything and did what they wanted. Then all the people signed leases, moved in, or bought the properties or whatever. Or maybe it was rental. They all had to move out because then the city was like, no, this is not what you were. So now it's a big empty building. Yeah, it's crazy, and it looks nothing like the Spaghetti the Spaghetti
I
Factory.
have to drive by it at some point. Like I spent a lot of time there in high school. So.
Did you? Yeah, I hear a lot of stories about
Now,
that.
wait a minute.
work near there, so.
I thought you weren't a delinquent living on
A
your
little
own.
bit of a delinquent, but not a huge delinquent. But I just remember that at some point, I don't know if this was true or not, but a bartender there told me that they were not allowed to card people. He's like, we were just told we're not allowed to card people. Like, we don't, if you ask, we'll serve you. And they were the only restaurant in town at that point that would still take a check. And for some reason, like I never had cash. I was a teenager. I had a checkbook.
Right.
What teenager has a checkbook? I'm like writing checks to the Spaghetti Factory for like spaghetti and like melon balls.
That's hilarious.
Because like that's what you drink when you're in high school. You drink Midori.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Oh, that's so funny.
Well, thank you so much. This has been really great. I don't want to take
absolutely anytime, and I'm looking forward to hearing the podcast about the episode.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
What a nice guy.
It was, yes. That was a pleasure.
Yes. I could have gone to the Spaghetti Factory and had some cheap beer with him.
I know. Yeah,
Talked
except
more.
that's been gone for a while.
If it hadn't been torn down.
I know. What a terrible story.
Yeah, but that was great.
Yeah,
Thank
what a
you.
great interview. And for our first one, it was pretty good.
I know.
And it actually went smoother than we thought. We really thought there was going to be an audio problem.
We practiced.
I mean, it's a Zoom, which, by the way, will get up on YouTube.
Oh, yeah. I'll put the video up on YouTube.
At some point, we'll get it up
also.
there. And so you can actually watch the interview, watch our Zoom call or whatever.
See his face.
Yeah, it was cool.
It was so
very,
fun.
very good. It was a good time. Nice guy.
Okay, so today we're going to cover season 4, episode 18. The title is 3 Teens and a Tony. And it first aired on Tuesday, March 1st, 1988. And the TV Guide summary says, Samantha is on thin ice with her steady when a platonic skate date with Mason takes an unexpected turn. So Mason is back.
Yeah,
hence the interview with Adam Carl.
Right.
Maybe we can get him to come
didn't
back for his last episode.
That's
too.
what I'm
He's
hoping.
going to be in another one.
I'm hoping maybe, or we can discuss with him. I don't know to see if he'll do the podcast with us.
Right, do the actual
for the last episode, which would be great.
Yeah, I feel like I was a little too nervous to try to swing that the first time, but since we've done it once now,
Since we're professionals.
And honestly, we've had some inquiries from listeners who would really like to come on as a guest. And it's not that I don't want to do that. It's just that I feel like it's going to be really hard to schedule it because
That's what it
right
is.
now Sunday night at 10 p.m. on the Pacific Coast.
Right.
And we're doing the podcast. So,
yes.
So maybe we can
how we roll.
Yeah, maybe we're just trying to fit it in between kids and stuff. So maybe we could try to figure that out so we could have some people on because that was a lot of fun to talk to someone.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Not just the two of us talking to each other.
I know.
Okay, so this episode was...
hang on,
Oh, no,
there.
I'm sorry. You're right. I got all excited and I forgot.
Forget
I don't
every
know.
time.
Every time.
No, I'm
Okay,
just
go.
kidding. The Internet Movie Database summaries. The first one is Mason temporarily moves in with Tony. Well, only Tony, I guess. Moves in with Tony when he is bullied away by his fellow students. The same night, which is false, Jesse canceled. I added the which is false.
Right, okay, yeah.
Jesse cancels a date with Samantha. She decides to go out with Mason and kisses him. I mean, spoiler alert.
Right, yeah.
It just rips the Band-Aid right off. And then the other one is Tony's Little League player Mason stays in his room.
Player.
I don't know.
That makes it sound like it's Bobby. Like they got Mason and Bobby confused because he was the Little League player. Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Tony's Little League player Mason stays in his room to study quietly for exams and escape teen bullying. Tony patiently pats up with Mason's countless allergies and fears. I don't know what that means. I'm sorry. I'm reading this cold. When Jesse cancels a date to help out at the animal shelter, Tony convinces Sam, which that doesn't happen either. Tony convinces Sam to take Mason along instead. He
convinces her.
Right.
Yeah.
To everyone's surprise, she ends up kissing the bright nerd.
The bright nerd.
Tony and Angela counsel her about telling Jesse, who reacts in 2 stages.
In what?
2 stages.
In 2 stages. I don't understand what that means. All right, but I think it's time to end the podcast because that was really long.
Sorry.
Now, when this episode starts, Tony is sleeping in his little room.
I know,
all
little
under
room.
his little
I love it.
covers. I know, with the little bedspread all neatly folded at the end.
Well, it's Tony.
Yeah, and his white tank top and sweats, very Tony. And he hears somebody like pelting pebbles at the window. So he probably at first thinks that somebody's really looking for Mona
Yeah,
or,
maybe.
God forbid, Samantha. But
True.
no, someone is throwing pebbles at his window.
Which he wakes up.
Yes, so he wakes up. He gets up, and when he gets out of bed, he stubs his toe, and I swear it sounds like Tony Danza says shit.
I know, he does.
You should,
I mean,
like-
it sounds like it.
The audience is laughing, but it really sounds like he says shit. Okay, so then he opens the window, and it's just a comedy of errors. He's hitting his head on the windowsill. He's hitting his head everywhere. And
He's tired.
he is. He's half asleep. It's like when we take Avi to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night.
Yeah, pretty
he
much.
He has no idea what's going on or where he is. And it's Mason outside the window. So Mason's trying to get Tony's attention. And he says, "Hi, Mr. Micelli, how are you?" And he says, "I'm in pain," because he's now hit
Right.
himself 3 times. Do you also notice how he's really pushing his butt up in the air
Yeah.
in this?
Yeah, I did.
Tony Danza's like, "Hang on, I'm going to lean out this window. I'm really going to give him a show.
Yeah.
Check out all these muscles." He says, "Okay, go around front and I'll be right there."
Which I thought his room was around front.
His room, well, I mean, he means the front door.
Oh, okay.
I think he just means go to the front door.
Oh, okay.
Stop throwing stuff in my window because there's no way to get up here.
Okay, yeah. All right.
But where is his room?
I think it faces the
Yeah, because
front
when
of
you
the
go
house.
up the stairs, well, Angela's would be over the living room.
But I think when you go up the stairs,
So-
his is to the left, right?
When you go up the stairs,
I don't know. In my mind, it is. It's probably wrong.
I think his is over the kitchen.
Oh, okay. See, shows what I know.
Actually, I don't know.
Yeah,
What
who
do I
knows?
know?
It's a
It's over
mystery.
that den that we never
Sure.
see, Angela's office. All right, so he stumbles downstairs. He's now stubbed his toe, hit his head. He goes downstairs and opens up the front door and to let Mason in. And he says, "Mason, it's the middle of the night. It's
Yes,
3:47."
Is what Mason says.
Right. And he says, I hope I didn't wake you." Okay, yeah, because Tony says, "Do you know what time it is?" He says, "It's 3:47. I hope I didn't wake you." "No, I had to come downstairs to answer the door anyway."
That's so funny because that was my classic line when someone would call when I was asleep. They would say, "I hope I didn't wake you," and I would say, "It's okay. I had to get up and answer the phone." So it's so funny that he uses that line because I used to say that all the time.
You were saying dad jokes before you were an actual dad.
Oh yeah, years
Yeah,
ago,
years
and years ago.
So he says that he needs a place to stay because he got kicked out of the dorm. He was so busy studying for his own finals that he didn't have time to do the football team's homework. Because as we learned in Big Man on Campus, and I guess I
Right.
should say, if you don't remember Mason is from the episode Big Men on Campus. Samantha uses him to get onto the college campus. He is in college, but he is also a teenager. So I think he's supposed to be 15, 16 here. Is there an animal meowing?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. I think it's a
And
cat, actually. Meow.
in that episode, he also says that he and the football players have an agreement where he helps them study and they let him use their weight room. But unfortunately, things have gone downhill between
course.
Mason and the football players. And as we heard,
I wonder
Adam,
what happened.
he said that he was so busy studying for his finals that
Okay,
he didn't have
so-
time to do their homework.
Oh, and that's really okay. So that's it. Okay. Yeah,
So they ran him out of the
dorm.
dorm. Yeah, they just kicked him out. Now, we learned in the interview that it seems like Tony Danza wanted Adam Carl to come back for an episode. So this
Right.
was pretty
Yeah.
much written around that. And okay, so he says he couldn't do their homework, so he got kicked out. And Tony's like, "Come on, you have 180 IQ. You couldn't talk your way out of this?" And he's like, "Yeah, but the nose guard weighs 340. What is a nose guard?
I don't know. The nose guard. Oh, in
on
the
a
football
football
team. I don't know.
Okay.
Like a lineman. I guess it's some kind of lineman.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know a lot about football, but I don't remember
I
hearing
mean,
that term
I know
before.
some, but a nose guard.
So right then, Angela comes out of the kitchen. This is not the first time we've seen Angela up in the middle of the night just eating food.
I know, and that's what's funny. She comes out like it's 3 p.m.
Right, yeah. And she's
like,
all
"What's
like
up?"
peppy. And is this just a TV thing? Like, do people really get up? I always feel like the midnight snack is like a TV thing.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone in real life who actually gets up in the middle of the night, makes himself something to eat, and then goes back to bed.
Well, you only know us, but yeah.
I know, but like even in college and stuff, I don't remember anyone getting. My parents never got up.
Nobody got up in
I
the
mean, I
middle.
don't.
Well,
Yeah, you're right. I haven't lived with a lot of people, but If you're out there and you regularly get up in the middle of the night to make yourself a meal, let us know.
Like fourth meal.
I have questions. And I'm sorry, but if you do that only and you also don't take Ambien, because I have heard that can be a side effect of Ambien.
Yes, I know some scary stories.
But if you just do that on your own, I'm very curious about it. So yeah, he says, "What are you doing awake?" She's like, "Oh, I was just having a midnight snack."
Right, like it's normal.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Tony says it's 3:47. Mason says it's 3:49. Not now, Mason.
I know.
So Tony says Mason needs a place to stay for the night. And then Mason's like, actually, a few nights, just until finals are over. And it kind of gets quiet between Tony and Angela. I didn't ask Adam Carl what working with Judith Light was like.
I know.
We
you
focused
should
more on Tony Danza.
That's okay.
I love her so much. He's like, that's okay. I understand. I'm a bother. So I'll just go sleep at the bus station. Then he asks them if they have a small blanket or a hefty bag. So pathetic.
I know. Like, it's going to be a long night.
Right. Now, we cut to upstairs.
Well, really quick, though, what's great when Judith Light comes out, or Angela, is she says, "Oh, company," like it's not 3:49 in the morning. Company. Oh, people stopping by at 3:49 in the morning.
I don't have to eat my sandwich all by myself.
I know, it's so funny when she says a company. Ooh, company.
And I really like the way her hair looks. I'm into Angela's relaxed hairstyles this season. Yeah, like in All in the Familia, she had cute hair before she went to bed. And in this episode, like I'm enjoying Angela's nighttime hair more than her I'm going out hair. Okay, now, up in Tony's room, he's unrolling a sleeping bag for Mason.
They ripped that thing right out.
He did, yeah.
Pulled it out of somewhere.
He found it, yes. Not like our house where the sleeping bags are packed deep in a closet.
I can get the sleeping bags out pretty fast.
But my thought is here, and we'll get to it in a little bit, is that this is probably a sleeping bag that Samantha uses for sleepover. So it's not something that's only used for camping.
Oh, that's true.
His room has suddenly gotten larger. I feel like they didn't have all of this space before. But there's enough room here for Tony to do some yoga, Pilates, whatever he wants to do. He could put a full reformer right here.
He could.
So he rolls out the sleeping bag and he says, here you go. And he calls him Mace, which is really cute.
Several times he calls him Mace.
Yes, that's his little nickname for him.
Mace.
And again, I know we mentioned it in the interview, but these two have great chemistry on screen together. Yeah. They just really have a great rapport.
Yeah.
So he says it's just like camping, only with central heating. And then Mason says, I hope this isn't down because I'm allergic to down. He's like, no, it's pure cotton. And he's like, oh, okay, good. Then he sneezes and he's like, well, I'm allergic to cotton too, but I have a pill for that.
Got a pill for everything.
Then Tony asks him, would you like some tap water for the pill? He says, no. Or would you like some water for that pill? He says, not if it comes out of the tap. Mason has a very sensitive ecological system here. I don't know what you call it. Biological system. Anything can throw him out of whack at any moment.
I mean, apparently. Even water out of the tap.
Yes. I know, because back then, now nobody drinks tap water. I mean, back then, I feel like drinking tap water was just a normal thing. So Mason gets into the sleeping bag, and as he's trying to get comfortable, something touches his foot. He completely freaks out and throws himself out. And I love his pajamas here too. They look like Carter's pajamas that we used to get our kids when they were smaller.
I know. There's some kind of like comic, like they say room or something. I don't know. Some kind of comic pajamas.
And it's funny to see like a 15 or 16-year-old in these, but then also this guy's in college, so this is what he's wearing to sleep in his dorm.
Yeah, that's probably a part of the problem.
Yeah, that's why he's getting kicked out by the football team. So Tony reaches into the sleeping bag and then he pretends that something is grabbing his arm and pulling him in. And he's like, I'm just kidding. It's
Classic Tony.
Yeah, of course. Dad joke. He said, it's just candy. And he's like, it is dangerous because candy does cause cavities. And Mason says, oh, I'm a dunderhead. And kind of smacks his head. Do you looked up dunderhead?
Yeah, the definition of dunderhead's a stupid person.
It's like a dummy.
That's all it is.
Yeah. And
which is interesting.
Tony says that Samantha's a slob because she used his sleeping bag last and then she didn't clean it out.
She left that candy wrapper in there.
So she probably takes this to Bonnie's house or whatever when it's time to sleep over. The last time we saw Tony in it was on 2 and on Billboard, right?
I think so. Oh, yeah. Well, if it's the same sleeping bag, yeah.
Probably. I mean...
Why wouldn't it be, right?
If it's not, it's a sleeping bag playing the same sleeping bag.
Okay.
Mason says, Mr. Micelli, could you please not talk about Sam like that? And Tony says, are you still carrying a torch for her? And he says, no, it's more on hold because I have this 15-year plan. Yeah, we discussed this in the interview, but I feel like Mason right here could be setting up the reboot for us. I like it.
Yeah.
He says, Sam and I go our separate ways. I pursue my career in kinetic physics. Sam marries a vacuous hunk and has how many vacuous kids? 5 or 6?
6, I think.
Let's not have 6 kids on the reboot. 3 at the most. That's way too many kids. But he says it's not working out. But she's reluctant to get a divorce. And Tony's like, I taught her well. I raised her right. I guess you don't get divorced in Tony's world. You just stay miserable.
I guess so.
Forever. And so Mason says there's a bitter divorce. She's shattered. She's depressed. And she's craving coffee. She walks into a chock full of nuts, and there he is. He's standing there. She wipes the powder from his nose and falls hopelessly in love. They get married, and he adopts all 6 of her kids. They call him Pops, and he wins the Nobel Prize in physics.
Wow.
He really has this all figured out. Now, a chock full of nuts, as far as I know, do they still exist?
I don't know.
I don't know. I wonder if it's a northern thing, because I don't remember them in Florida, and I haven't seen any here.
Well, I remember the coffee cans.
But
right?
an actual physical building.
I don't think so.
Brick and mortar chock full of nuts. So we could change that to a Starbucks. All right, so then Tony's like, you know what? It's a lovely story, Mason, and it would be wonderful to have you in our family. But right now, we need to get some sleep. So he's like, okay. So he gets back into his sleeping bag. Tony gets back into his bed. He turns off the light. Tony says, good night, Mason. And Mason says, good night, Dad.
Throws them off.
Did you find any chock full of nuts?
I'm looking to see.
I found some. There is a chock full of nuts in Brooklyn.
Oh,
2 in
close
Brooklyn.
by.
Upstate New York, Elizabeth, New Jersey, and Miami, Florida. So I was wrong. There is one in Florida, just not anywhere where we live.
No.
Okay. Well,
all right.
I feel better now that we know that there maybe are still some. But the reality is he's going to run into her in a Starbucks. Okay, now where did my video go here? What happened? Okay. Now we go to the next morning, and Mason's sitting at the kitchen table. He's studying. Tony and Jonathan's eating his breakfast, and then Tony is doing a whole production of making pancakes. He tells Mason, okay, Mace, what's it going to be?
Mace.
Right. We got granola. We got eggs. And we got whole wheat pancakes. Give it to Tony Micelli to be making whole wheat pancakes back in 1988.
I know. I believe it.
Yeah, I feel like it would have been all
always
flour
healthy
then.
stuff.
Yeah,
with him.
That's how he rolls. Okay. Then he throws a pancake up in the air, does a
Turns
pirouette,
around. Yeah,
and then catches it back on the pan. And the crowd goes crazy. They really like it.
Yeah.
Either that or they were threatened with they had to clap and applaud. But they really enjoy it. Mason says, do you have
I
any...
really enjoyed it.
I did. Yes, I did too. He asks, do you have any powdered donuts? Come on, Mason. They're letting you stay here. And then
Which is exactly why Tony says, you're having pancakes. Yeah. Mason.
That's such a kid thing.
All right, do you have powdered donuts? Powdered donuts was not an option.
No, not at all. And Tony's not going to let that crap in his house.
No.
Now,
so true.
Mona comes in. And so Tony says, you're having pancakes. Then Mona comes in. She says, good morning. Isn't it such a lovely day? She sees Jonathan sitting at the table. And then she sees this kid. And she's like, who are you? And he says, Tony says, like, oh, Mona, you remember Mason. Oh, yes, of course, Mason. Get out of my chair.
Yeah.
Bub.
He's in her chair.
I like how she says, bub.
Bub.
Yeah. So he does. He gets up, and then he moves into what would be Angela's chair, I guess.
Oh, yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I see Tony sit there a lot, but you're right.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You're right. That
if
is Angela's chair.
Angela ever ate breakfast,
right.
she would sit there.
Right.
She comes flying into the kitchen, finishing her coffee and saying, Mother, we got to go. We got to get to the train. And Mona says, but I haven't had my breakfast yet. Angela says, you work better hungry. I have a feeling that's not true.
Yeah, I know.
No.
Nobody works better hungry.
I feel like Mona barely works on a full stomach. Anything hungry, she's going to get hangry and nothing's going to get done. So Mona says, Jonathan, look that way. And then she takes Jonathan's breakfast.
I know. He goes for it too.
So, like, while she's walking through the living room, is she just folding those pancakes and shoving them into her mouth?
I know, and I just like Jonathan's like, Grandma. Oh,
Right.
well. And then he just grabs some bowl that's close to him full of food.
Just starts eating that. Move on to the next thing.
Yeah, it's almost like it happens all the time.
No, of course, yeah. I'm sure Jonathan's completely used to Grandma stealing his food, pushing him out of the way, anything for what Grandma needs. Now, Samantha comes in the kitchen, and she says, "Morning, Dad. Morning, Jonathan. Morning, Mason." And then she's like, "Mason?" And he says, "Oh, hi, Sam. I moved in." And she's like, "Oh, that's nice. Why?" And he tells her, "Well, I have finals coming up, and you know how it is. It's really hard to study at the dorms." Tony's like, "Well, he was having a little bit of a communication problem with some of his classmates." Yeah. Then Jonathan pipes up and says the nose guard was using him as a tackling dummy. So I guess Jonathan heard that story at some point.
Yeah, he knows the full story.
Yeah. And then Tony's like, "Jonathan, how would you like if that happened to you?" And he says, "It does happen to me. And that's why I feel so close to this guy." This is great.
No.
This would be the perfect big brother for Jonathan if he could have one. And so he goes over to Mason and says, "Later, dude," and walks out. There's finally someone nerdier than Jonathan in this house. So he leaves, and then Jesse comes in. Like, this really is Grand Central Station. There's Masons there. I know Tony's complained about that before, but there are just random people showing up.
Yep.
So I guess Jesse's there maybe to pick up Sam to take her to school. So they're being all cute and lovey together, like, "You look nice, so do you. What did you do to your hair? I brushed it." And they're having this whole conversation standing over Mason, who's just pretending that he's not hearing any of this. Tony says, "Sam, don't you want to introduce him to anyone?" And she's like, "Oh, that's right. Yeah, this is Mason." They kind of look at Mason, and he's like, "Hi, I'm Jesse. Hi, I'm Mason." And then Mason's like, "Don't worry, I'm not any threat."
Right.
I don't think Jesse was worried.
Right.
But that's some good foreshadowing right there. So they're like, "Okay, well, we better get to school." Sam says, "I want to buy tickets to the skating party." And Jesse's like, "Oh, yeah, about that. A guy called and asked if I could cover for him at the animal shelter on Friday night."
Volunteer.
Yes, so he volunteers at the animal shelter, I guess, and they need him to come in on Friday night. And Sam's all disappointed, and he's like, "Come on, Sam, the mutts really need me." And she says, "What about this mutt?" That was cute.
Yeah.
He says, "Don't let this stop you. You can still go. You just need to go with somebody else." And she's like, "Who else am I going to go with?" "I don't know, Bonnie?" I mean, I guess you only have one friend left, but just go with a friend.
Right.
So their suggestion is that she can go with Mason. Jesse's like, "Here, just take Mason," because Jesse's not seeing Mason as any kind of threat at all.
Right.
Mason looks so cute. Look at that little sweater vest.
I know, and he's got some kind of like, it's not quite a members only jacket, but it's pretty close to it.
Yeah, and I like the little, oh, well, you went ahead, sorry. I don't see that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He has little stripes on his sweater vest here sitting at the kitchen table.
All right, okay.
You're watching your own episode over there.
No, I just didn't realize I was that far ahead.
Are you missing any of this?
I think so. I think I missed. Yeah, I cut right to this.
Oh, no, that's after that. Okay, hang on. No one cares about any of this but us. Okay, so
sorry.
He says, go with Mason, and Mason's like, "Oh, I don't think so. I have a lot of work to do. And I'm not very good on ice. I'm not even good on pavement." But Tony's like, "Yeah, you'll be fine. You'll be great." He said, "I could see you gliding gracefully over the ice." And then he asks if he has insurance. So now,
what is Tony doing there?
I don't know. He's gliding gracefully over the ice.
He's demonstrating gliding gracefully because it looks ridiculous.
It looks like he's doing a hula dance.
I know. Yeah, or like he's having a seizure or something.
He needs a little grass skirt on. Yes. Okay. So now we cut to Mason and Samantha coming home. What?
Where I'm at.
Okay. Yes.
I know. I guess I went ahead.
Yeah, you did. I think the frame rate is faster on the Antenna TV episodes. Right. Even though I am playing this at a faster speed. I don't know. Nobody cares about any of this. Okay.
Yes.
So they come home from the skating party, and Samantha's laughing. She's having a great time. Oh, you know what? I forgot to say who wrote this episode.
Oh.
I'll get to it. Okay. So they're laughing. They're having a good time. Mason says, so tell me, Sam, that last time I fell down, how many skaters did I take with me? So they're painting a pretty cute picture of what was happening there. Like, Mason was being his clumsy self, but Samantha was having a good time. And he tells her, I had a really great time tonight. And he goes to leave. And she's like, wait a minute, you live here, dunderhead.
Yeah, dunderhead.
Yeah, so now
Again
she's
with the
even using
dunderhead.
his terminology now. So they've really kind of, they've bonded this night. He's like, oh, yeah, you're right. So she's like, come on in, my dad's here. She opens up the door. She's expecting to see her dad waiting up for her. And he's not. The living room is completely empty. She's like, wait a
looks like
minute.
everybody's in bed.
Yeah, where is he? He always waits up for me when I'm on a date. And then Mason's like, well, that's because you're not on a date, dunderhead. You're with me. Now, what made me realize that I forgot to say the writer of this episode is because Samantha's acting a tiny bit drunk here.
Right.
Even though she's not at all drunk. Like,
Right.
she's just probably tired and silly and they had too much sugar or something. But what reminded me was that the writer of this episode is a person named Clayleen Jones. And they wrote this episode, and then they wrote Boozing Buddies, which is the episode where
interesting.
Samantha gets drunk.
Oh, all right.
So I'm sorry, Clayleen, that I didn't say
I
that
know.
earlier. I think I got sidetracked with the those riveting IMDb summaries.
Yeah, it's my fault.
Then Mason says, if this were a date, I'd be hyperventilating. I have a very low excitement threshold. And she's like, don't be so down on yourself. Like, you really are a lot of fun to be around. And she's not just trying to, like, build him up here. I think she really means it. Like, they really had a good time. Which also makes you wonder, like, what happened when they went to the homecoming dance together. Because remember at the end of Big Man on Campus, he asks her if he can take her to the homecoming dance.
Oh, right.
So that he can show her off, because then he can use her like she used him.
Right.
So she's like, you're really a lot of fun to be around. And when you smashed into Lisa Frankel, I think she got in your way on purpose. And he's like, oh, stop it. And she's like, no, I'm being serious. She was smiling at you and they carried her to the first aid station.
Carried her to the first aid station.
But I agree with Samantha. I always thought Mason was so cute. And I get that he's supposed to be kind of geeky, but he's like, he's not like, he's supposed to be a stereotypical nerd. But there's something in him that shines through that makes him, like, not the stereotypical nerd.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Especially when you're an 11-year-old girl, I guess. So she says, you're a very attractive guy, except for that mustard on your cheek. My closed captioning says mustard on your teeth.
Mustard on your teeth.
And she's like, come here, let me wipe that away for you. So she kind of wipes his cheek, and then she goes in for a kiss. So then afterwards, she's kind of like, oh, and she takes a step back, and then he's standing there sort of in a daze, and she's like, are you okay? And he starts hyperventilating.
He needs a bag.
Yes. She's like, are you okay? And he says, get a bag. Now, is that also a real thing? When someone is hyperventilating, do you get them a bag?
I think that's so you're restoring carbon dioxide because you're breathing it out and then bringing it back in, and you're restoring.
Hang on, I'm gonna look.
Okay.
I don't believe you.
I'm not a Dr. Kevin here. It's something
oh
like
yeah,
that.
you're right. Okay,
It's
it says
something like that.
hyperventilation syndrome is often associated with panic disorders. When a person has a panic attack, the psychological condition can make them breathe too fast, which causes the body to lose carbon dioxide.
Too
so,
fast.
Yeah, so when you breathe it into the bag and then you breathe back in, you're breathing the CO2 back into your body, so that's supposed to help.
Okay.
Interesting.
See?
I've only hyperventilated once in my life.
Really?
Yes, it was when I was pregnant. Remember when I was...
Oh, I mean, yeah, of course. I remember.
No. The doctor told me later that I hyperventilated and that's what happened.
Okay.
But it was when I was pregnant and I had to pull over and we had to call 911 and I had to go to the hospital because I was about to pass out. Okay. Anyway, not interesting to anyone else but us. But
I remember it.
Okay, so that's a real thing because I feel like on TV you always see people breathing in and out of a paper bag. Again, never seen that in real life.
No, I've never seen a grown person.
Yeah, but and it also might be that we just don't have. That's like these people on TV always have these little paper bags laying around.
I know. They're everywhere.
Like, what are you doing with all these little paper bags? I don't have any of those, and if I do, I'd have to go in the laundry room and dig around for at least 10 minutes. By then, I would have passed out. So now we cut to Tony upstairs.
Doing
Do you
one-arm
have this?
push-ups.
Oh, yes.
I have it. I'm lost.
So as we said earlier, he has enough room here now to work out, and he is
Yeah,
working
because the
out.
room is tremendous for some reason. Somebody remodeled the place.
This room grew quite a bit since the last time we saw it. So yeah, he is on the floor doing, this is so Tony Danza.
One-arm push-ups.
Like, let me do some one-arm push-ups
And
in
like
my
people
little
probably
tank top and pants.
People probably do one-arm push-ups to show off. He does it because that's part of the workout.
Well,
You know what I mean? Like, there's no one
Tony,
in the room.
right.
He's not showing off to anybody.
Right. Tony Micelli is doing it as part of the workout.
Right.
Tony Danza is doing some one-arm push-ups in front of 350 people in the audience.
That's true.
Now, so he's doing that, and Mason comes flying in the bedroom
I know.
door.
Has to jump over him because he's running in so fast. I'm not
This
sure
is
what's happening
actually
there.
fantastic. I don't think I've really paid enough attention to this in the past. But yes, he jumps over him, and then Tony kind of falls down. And Tony says, "Hey, Mason, didn't your mother ever tell you to knock before you yahoo?" Because
Yahoo.
he's yelling yahoo
Right.
as he comes through the door. So he said he's too excited to even worry about any of that.
I know. This is actually a funny scene.
Yes. He says, "Mr. Micelli, you won't believe what just happened." And Tony says, "They had a breakthrough in nasal decongestants?" He's like, "No, I wish." But
Not a funny guy.
it's even better. Sam and I were talking downstairs and laughing and having fun, and then she wipes some mustard off of my cheek, and he starts hyperventilating again. And luckily, he still has the bag that Samantha
I
gave
know.
him.
He's still holding on to that bag. Thank God.
So he starts breathing in and out of the bag, and Tony's like, "All right, calm down. Like, what happened?" And he says, "She kissed me." And then Tony starts hyperventilating.
I know.
So Mason's like, "Do you want the bag?" And Tony does take the bag and start breathing in and out of it. Is it weird that I'm a little grossed out that they're sharing that bag? Maybe it's COVID. I don't know. Tony's like, "Wait a minute. Like, you mean it was an accident? She just bumped into your lips?"
Like, what does that mean?
I don't know.
How do you bump into somebody's lips?
Yeah, I don't know. You're walking around.
You got to
and
be
trip.
going in for the kill at that
Lips
point.
first.
Right.
Yeah. He says, "No, it was no accident. It was just like I planned, except it was the living room instead of a chock full of nuts. It was mustard instead of powdered sugar, and it was tonight instead of 2003. So that's the other thing we didn't mention earlier, is that Mason said that this was going to happen in 2003.
Right.
And then at that point, 2003 seems so far away.
It did.
And now 2003 was so long ago.
Yeah, I know.
It was 18 years
Horrible.
ago. I know.
It's so horrible.
And in 1988, it was 15 years
Yeah.
from then.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. He says, "I can't believe it." So he's really excited, but Tony's like, "I can't believe this either. Like, I don't understand what is happening here." Mason says the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances.
Oh, wow.
Yes, if there's any reaction, then both substances are changed forever, transformed forever. And then he says, Carl Jung, 1933. Because that's who said that quote.
That's okay.
And then Tony says, "What the hell is going on here?" Tony Micelli, 1988.
What the hell is going on here?
Mason says it was all very innocent, but intoxicating. And
I bet.
And Tony says, "I'll be right back. You stay here and sober up." So he goes to Sam's room and he knocks on the door and he goes inside. And she's just kind of sitting up in bed looking around. He's like, "Okay, good night, sweetheart. You know, do you need anything? Can I get you a snack, some water, some chapstick?" And she says, "Oh no," Mason blabbed. So she's like, "I'm so embarrassed."
Chapstick.
And Tony's like, "So this is true? Like, I thought you didn't like Mason." And now she's pulled the covers up over her head so that you can't see her face. And her voice is a little muffled underneath the covers, which is funny. And he's like, I didn't think you liked Mason that way." She said, I don't. I thought you were going steady with Jesse." "I am. I'm so confused." And she says, "Me too." So he's like, "Come out from underneath the covers so we can talk about this." And she says, "I don't want to talk about this. I don't want anyone else to know about it. I just want us to forget about it." So of course, who walks in right then? Angela. And she's like, "Forget about what?" So Tony says, "Samantha kissed Mason." And she's like, no. And he's like, oh, shoot, I didn't have time to lock it away. It all happened so fast. So Angela's like, don't worry, honey. I promise I won't tell anyone. It won't go beyond these four walls. And then, of course, Mona walks in. Now, why is Mona there?
I don't know.
She has her own, she's in her pajamas. So shouldn't she be in her own house? She says, what won't go beyond these four walls? Which I understand we need for the comedy of it, but I just think it's funny that Mona's still wandering around this house, probably looking for food or stealing toothpaste or something when she should be in her own damn house.
Stealing toothpaste.
She says, what
That's
won't
possible.
go? What won't? She's probably taking it right off of, like Jonathan's trying to put the toothpaste onto his toothbrush, and she just moves his hand and puts her own toothbrush under it. That's what I'm envisioning. She says, what won't go beyond these four walls? And Samantha sits up. She's like, I kissed Mason, okay? And Mona says, well, finally, some action around here. And Mona, I have to agree with you.
I know.
I mean, it's unfortunate that the kiss that's finally happening is with a 14 and 15-year-old kid and not Tony and Angela. But, nothing else is going on. So she gets into bed with Sam and she's like, give me all the details. I want to know how this happened. Samantha's like pretty upset here. She's like, I don't understand how I let this happen. Like, am I destined to grow up and drift from one tawdry affair to another? Now, I remember seeing this episode, and I guess I would have been, I'm closer to Jonathan's age, so I probably would have been like 11 or 12 here. I don't know if I thought like, oh, I guess you just kiss random people, but like, I don't remember that being a problem. I'm like, why did she kiss Mason? I understand you need it for the storyline, but they've only been going steady for like 3 weeks, and she just randomly kissed some other guy. So she says, what am I going to do? Go from one tawdry affair to another? And Mona says, it worked for me.
Right. Of course it did.
Tony wants to pick her up and kick her out of there.
I know. He's had enough.
Yeah. And Angela says, kissing Mason wasn't that awful. And Tony's like, what do you mean that wasn't that awful? She's committed to Jesse. And she says, yeah, I'm wearing his Save the Whales pin.
Aw.
Angela asks Sam, well, how do you feel about Mason? And Mona says, don't hold anything back.
I know.
And Sam says, well, I like him as a friend, but I just don't get the feelings that I get when I see Jesse. And now Tony's like, oh no, what feelings are you talking about?
I know, right?
And she's like, when I'm waiting for him by the locker and I see him and my heart skips a beat and then I slam my finger in the door. And Tony's like, oh, okay, all right, that's fine. Those feelings are fine. Not a problem. And so she says, I just don't know how I'm going to face Jesse tomorrow. And Tony's like, well, you're going to have to tell him. And Mona says, no, you don't have to tell him. And that is not at all what Tony wants to hear. So what are your thoughts here about this? Because now Tony and Angela are going to start having a conversation about themselves.
Right.
Over Samantha for their problems.
Right.
So like at first I would think like, oh, of course, like you have to be honest and tell the person. But then after I thought about it more, I think I kind of do agree with Mona and Angela as far as like this relationship goes, because what really is the point of her telling Jesse?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's not like they're well, at this point, Sam is really thinking that these two people are going to get married. So I guess if you're in that serious a relationship, then one, you probably shouldn't have kissed Mason. But two, if you did.
How serious were you?
Right. Then you do want to maybe tell him. But I don't know. They're in high school. Like, maybe just don't. I feel like I'm siding with Angela and Mona, which I wouldn't think I would.
I know.
So Tony says, what if he hears it from somebody else?
Right.
And Mona's like, oh, come on. Like, he's not going to hear it from anyone else. Tony says that's deceitful and devious. And now Angela says, you know what, though? I kind of think that Mother has a point. But now Mona's like, wait a minute. You agree with me? I better rethink this.
Right.
Yeah. So now Tony and Angela are going to have a conversation about themselves using Samantha's situation. So he says, honesty is the best policy. And Angela says, it's not just black and white. There are many shades of gray. Tony says, now wait a minute
Tony
here.
doesn't want to hear.
No. He says, what?
I'm sorry.
Right. He doesn't want to hear many shades of gray at all. Now, this also could bring us back to the idea of, what do you look at?
Sorry. I'm looking to see where you're at. I'm lost again.
What is happening?
Somehow I got really far ahead. And I thought I was behind. I'm sorry. Okay. I think I got it now.
Okay.
I'm in the right spot.
Okay.
I'm where you're at.
Okay, good.
Finally. I don't know. I was like 3 minutes or 4 minutes ahead.
How did you manage to do
Wishful
that?
thinking, I guess. I don't know.
So Tony says, let me get this straight. You and I are in a relationship. You kiss someone behind my back and you don't tell me. And she says, well, it depends on the circumstances. He says, what circumstances? And then Samantha says, hey, remember me? I'm the one with the problem.
That's true. And she's sitting there in the middle of the room.
I know.
Listen, but I mean,
Listening to these two people who aren't her parents.
I don't know. I got to side with Tony here.
About
Right?
Angela saying something?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, yeah, wait. Hey,
depends on the circumstances.
okay, so that's what I'm saying here. Like, yes. if
Depends on the
you-
circumstances, I guess, meaning how serious you are in the relationship that you're in.
yes.
Okay, I
Yeah.
got it.
Like, for a high school relationship, maybe let's not.
Okay.
Let's think
All right,
about this,
okay.
and if it was a real mistake, let's not, but if the end result's going to be that you break up now as opposed to breaking up in 6 months,
Yeah, I
whatever.
guess so. All right.
Obviously, if you're married, then
I know.
you
I'm
should
thinking
probably...
as
Right.
what my relationship is now.
Right. Like, if one of us kisses somebody else, then someone's in trouble.
That's a problem.
But in high school, I mean, who knows?
I guess so. Yeah. All right.
So, but I do understand why Tony would be a little upset to hear Angela say that.
I know. That's the underlying.
That could be, yes. So that could be a little nerve-wracking. Now, also, as we've said before, they have always been very vague about the timeline of Tony playing baseball, Tony's wife dying, and
Right.
Tony sleeping with everyone.
I know that is vague. And baseball players, unfortunately, have been known to just
Right.
sleep around the country.
But this would make you think more that no, Tony wouldn't have cheated on his wife, and instead he played basketball.
Basketball.
Maybe he played basketball.
I don't know.
In addition,
Sure, it's Tony.
Yeah.
Tony probably has done everything.
He played baseball after he lost his wife, and that's when he was sleeping with everyone. Okay, so who knows? We'll
what we're
never
going
know
with.
because the timeline was very vague.
Yeah.
Okay, so she says, "Hey, anyone remember me? I'm the one with the problem." And then Jonathan walks in.
I know,
What
with
problem?
the cutest. And then Jonathan walks in with the cutest little pajamas.
I know he does have
His
the
little button-down
cutest-
pajamas. And he's like, "What problem?"
That's so cute. Now you're telling me that Mason can't hear any of this across the hall?
I guess not. I guess we're supposed to think that. But you know what's funny about this scene is this is very little kid because we deal with this all the time.
Oh, I know.
Where you and I will be discussing something in the kitchen and a child will walk in. What are you talking about?
Right.
What issue?
Yes.
And so this is so funny that he comes in and
Right.
it's like,
'Cause
what problem?
They probably asked him to brush his teeth 14 times and he pretended that he didn't hear them. But then
Right.
they said one thing that didn't pertain to him and that's what he
And
heard.
that's what?
Yeah,
What'd
exactly.
you say?
What problem?
But then yell across the room, feed the cats in
Right.
silence.
Yeah, nothing.
Can't hear you all of a sudden.
Yeah, suddenly you're Bruce Willis in The Sixth Sense.
I know. So bad.
Now, the next morning, Samantha walks into her dad's room where Mason is packing up his stuff. And I think one of our kids would wear the outfit that Sam is wearing here.
Yeah.
It's like a long green shirt that's kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
belted because the belts are really coming back. I feel like the belts kind of jumped 80s a bit and went straight to 90s, but I could see this belted look coming back. And a pair of leggings.
Yeah,
I'm not a
totally.
fan of the green and the blue, but whatever. It was the 80s.
I know, but I could see our oldest definitely doing this.
Yes. So Samantha says, "Hi, Mason." And he's like, "Hi, Sam." And she says, "I've been thinking about what happened last night." And then she notices that he's doing something and she's like, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm packing my underwear around my portable humidifier so it won't scratch my negative ion generator."
I mean, yeah, this thing, it's a huge, it looks like a cash register. What is that thing?
And his underwear is so tiny.
I know.
I don't think it's going to be able to
Well, they're
protect.
probably little tiny white.
Right. I don't think it's going to be able to protect this monstrosity from scratching his negative ion generator. And
Negative
how did he
ion.
get all this stuff there?
I know. He came in the middle of the night, yet he brought his negative ion generator and
Maybe he went back to the dorm for this stuff.
I guess.
So Sam says, "Oh, does that mean that you're leaving?" And he says, "Yes." So he says, "Last night was magical, but I've been thinking since then, and I really like you,
yeah.
but you are too mature, and I am not ready for this kind of passion."
I'm not ready for this kind of passion.
And Sam's like, wait. And he's like, no, don't say anything.
Just go.
Yeah, like it's just, it would be too distracting. I have my studies, my life's work, and my allergies.
But like, doesn't he say? No, she says, but you're dumping me.
Yeah, she says,
right?
does this mean that you're dumping me?
But they weren't a thing.
No,
it was a kiss.
but I guess she figures that, well, right.
And when she's leaving the room,
Yeah.
you see the chimney, right? Oh, I see. You're right.
Okay, you're
right.
going way too far
No,
ahead
no.
here.
No, I'm
Right.
not. She just left the room. But you're
No,
right.
he says, don't think of it as being dumped. Think of it as being put on hold for 15 years. And then she's like, oh, okay.
Oh, I thought she left already.
No.
Oh, shit.
I don't understand.
I'm sorry. I'm off.
What are you doing?
I don't know. I thought we were... Maybe something...
Yeah, maybe something is cut from your
I think
part.
you're right.
Yes,
There's
you're right.
nothing
Okay.
about her...
Okay, being magical. I see. Okay, yes.
I heard yours.
I see.
We checked it. Okay.
So
I'm not,
so
I'm
she's
not
like,
off here.
you know, she's trying to get him to talk more, and he's like, no, don't say anything. Just go. So she turns around, and she's like, okay, and then she walks out. So yes, if you look through Tony's bedroom door, you see the chimney that is to the left when you come out of Angela's bedroom.
So you're absolutely right. Tony's room is not in the front. It is in
the back over the den.
Over the kitchen and the den.
Oh wait, the kitchen.
Or I think it's over. No, you're
wait,
right.
wait,
It
hang
is.
on, hang
It's
on.
over. It's over the living room.
Okay. Yeah,
sort of, but like back
on the
almost
other
to
side.
where Angela's secret office
right.
is that we never
that
see.
we never see.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
God, you wanted to make this a short episode with that interview, and I'm dragging it on. I'm sorry. So sorry. Sorry. Go ahead.
Hey, I'm enjoying all of this. If there's one thing I love doing, it's trying to figure out the blueprint of a sitcom television house.
I know.
They're always awful, and you can always find mistakes. But we
really
don't care. We just take what we can get.
I know, and I really thought his room was in the front, but I thought it was in the front above like the front door. Or
Yeah,
like
I don't
above the front
think-
door, but like to the left. But
Yeah, because
you're right. There's the fireplace, which runs up.
So it would be like more the back of the house.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway.
Anywho.
Now we cut to. I gotta stop saying we cut to. Next time.
It's a thing.
Angela's sitting in the kitchen, and look, she's sitting in that seat that we were talking about.
That's her seat.
And this has to be Saturday. Yes, it is Saturday because they went skating on Friday night. Angela's actually eating breakfast.
I know.
Because it's Saturday.
I know it's Saturday. That's why. No coffee,
Right,
no
yep.
juice. And she's like, heavenly.
Yeah, she's
Tony,
like-
you make the best pancakes.
Right. But he's like,
If that's not sexual tension, I don't know what is. But I do like that Tony has like the syrup pour that you'd get at like a restaurant, like IHOP.
Oh, let me see.
Like you hit it with your thumb.
Oh, yes.
And it pours out. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Right,
it's
of
restaurant
course.
style.
No,
Because
right.
that's Tony.
Yeah, he's not just using the Costco jug
No,
like we do.
no.
He's he
It's
actually
like the
put it
restaurant
in.
style, like
Yes.
Denny's, like the Denny's or IHOP.
And his little apron.
I know. The apron is funny too.
And he's like, oh, are you being totally honest with me, Angela? I mean, how do I know
Oh, here we go.
that you don't walk out of here, eat some other guy's pancakes, and then tell him the same thing?
Again, that's code for something.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, they might as well just get it on this table right here. Angela says, I don't eat around. That really does sound dirty.
All of it. I mean, it's supposed to.
Right.
That's the
I like
idea
her
of it.
hair here again. I
Yeah.
feel like we're coming out of like the major giant Angela hair, and it's getting a bit softer.
It is.
And I am enjoying it.
Yeah. Very
Okay.
nice.
So right then, Samantha comes bounding into the kitchen, and they're like, hey, how are you? And she's like, I'm great. I just got dumped. She says, Mason let me down easy, which is great because then I didn't have to let him down easy, which would have been hard. And then just then, Jesse comes in the back
Yeah.
door. Why does he look like a picnic cloth?
I know. Sure, he's wearing a picnic table shirt. I know Tony's he's got his apron on, so who knows?
I feel like Tony had a great relationship with this kid and with Mason. Like
Yeah,
he's in his
I believe
element
it.
here with these like two guys,
I believe
young
it.
guys.
I mean,
that
the
he
young
can,
like actors, he probably thought, felt like he was
like
not an
guiding them or
apprentice, but mentoring them in
Right.
a way. I mean, And then from the interview we
And they're
had too,
both-
you could tell that he had
you could tell that
Adam
he
had
had
a good relationship with him.
Yeah. And both of these kids are very good actors too, which I think helps.
Right.
Because
I agree with you 100%.
he can really they're quick and he can really bounce off of them well. He asks Jesse how was volunteering at the pet clinic, and he's like, it was amazing. I brought in how many? 6 Chihuahua puppies.
Wow.
Yeah, Jesse had an awesome night. That was a good night to have to cover, because normally probably just a couple dogs would shit and maybe one would throw up and you'd have to clean it. But he actually got to help deliver puppies.
I would rather clean up shit and throw up than deliver puppies.
Really?
I don't want to
that would be
deliver
amazing.
anything. Terrible.
I would love to see that.
Oh, God, no.
As long as everyone was okay.
Sounds like a mess.
Tony's like, well, congratulations, canine midwife. And then he asks him,
midwife.
you did wash your hands, right? And he says yes.
Oh, God.
And so he shakes his hand.
Well, how did Jesse get there, I wonder?
I think Jesse has a car.
Oh, you think?
Or a bike. I don't
guess.
know.
I always think that these people are way younger than they are. You're right.
No, Jesse drives.
You're right.
'cause
He
that
does
was
drive,
the episode.
right? That's
Yeah.
the whole point of that. Yep.
Right. He's a little bit older than she is.
You're right.
Jesse asks Sam, how was your skating party? Which my closed captioning says skinny party.
Skinny party.
When people didn't eat a lot and they just stood around.
Or a skinny dipping party.
Or a skinny dip, yes. And she's like, oh, it was great. And, actually, I want to talk to you if we can go out into the living room. So Jesse heads out into the living room, and Sam turns back and says, I decided you were right, Dad. I'm going to tell Jesse the truth. So she goes out there. And then,
of course, Tony was right.
Right. And Angela's looking like, oh, this is not a good idea. And Tony says, you could learn a lot from that little girl. I kind of like Angela's sweater there, too. I don't understand what those big cotton candy looking colorful things on it, but I like the cut of the yellow. So in the living room, Sam still tells Jesse, okay, remember when we first started going steady? We promised we would always be open and honest with each other.
Right.
It sounds like they did a lot of talking for someone to have kissed someone within a couple of weeks. And we're going to find out that there was even more kissing going on.
Yes.
And she's like, okay, well, last night at the skating party. And then she chickens out and it's like, you really delivered
6 chihuahuas.
6 chihuahuas? And if Jesse's kind of a bit like Tony, where if he can talk about himself, he's into it. So he's like, oh yeah, the contraction started right in the middle of our Spuds MacKenzie lookalike contest. Second time Spuds MacKenzie has
I know, such a great reference.
Yeah, because it was really huge
That was
at
a thing.
the time.
That's tremendous.
Yeah.
Especially during this time.
Yeah. I don't know that there's a commercial campaign that's been quite... Like, I remember back in the 80s, it was like Spuds MacKenzie and the California Raisins. There were these few commercial campaigns that just really kind of permeated.
I know. I mean, I think I mentioned it the first time Spuds MacKenzie was mentioned is those shirts were banned in my school.
Right, yeah.
Couldn't wear them.
Yep, and Spuds MacKenzie was a girl,
because they were Bud Light.
not a boy.
I know.
I think that's
that
important
was
to know.
devastating when I learned that. I thought all these years, I thought he was a man dog.
But I guess now what you would replace that is viral videos. Like there's stuff like that kind of gets
like come and
super
go.
big. Yeah,
Right.
come and go. Okay.
Right.
So Sam's like, oh, like you cut me up, Jesse. You're so funny. I kissed Mason last night.
Right. She just slips it in there.
Yeah. And he says, what? And she's like, I kissed Mason. And he's like, where? And then she points to the bottom of the stairs right over there. Which is also the same place she kissed Jesse. It's like that's where Alyssa Milano has to kiss actors.
Right. Exactly. Well, it's by the front door.
Yeah. And he says, no, I mean on the lips. And she's like, yes. And he's like, okay, so you felt sorry for him and you were just, making him feel better? She's like, no, it was just a regular old kiss. She's like, we were just having such a good time. And like, it seemed right at the moment, but I really don't know why I did it. Now back in the kitchen, Tony is lecturing Angela about relationships. Meanwhile, she's still eating pancakes. How many pancakes has Angela eaten this morning? She had gotten up and stopped.
And probably had another midnight snack or a 3 a.m. snack.
Yes, that's true. And she's still so tiny. So he says, Angela, you see, a relationship is like a delicate flower. You got to water it. You got to nurture it. You got to sprinkle it. And then, only then will it bloom. And Angela says, provided you keep shoveling fertilizer on it.
Ah.
Which means take your shit elsewhere, buddy.
That's right.
Yeah. And he says, don't toy with me, Angela. I don't really know what that means. So Sam comes into the kitchen.
I don't really know what that means.
They ask her, like, what did you tell him? What did he say? And she's like, yes, I told him. And he said, I see. And then I told him it would have never happen again. And he said, I see. Tony's like, that's all he said was I see. She's like, no, well, he said that trust was very important in a relationship. And he was glad that I told him and was totally honest with him. And Tony's feeling pretty good about himself.
That's right.
And she says, and then he dumped me.
Ah.
Yeah. But I mean, Tony had to know that this was coming. So like if he values honesty so much and he thinks that Jesse's also going to value honesty so much, what would make Tony think that Jesse is then going to be like, oh, I'm sure it's fine. We can still keep dating. Like telling someone is most likely ending the relationship.
Yeah, I agree.
I guess it depends on, again, the, depth of the relationship, if someone would want to, try to make it work after that. But seriously, you're like 15 and 16 here. Okay, so now, is this Tony Danza being Tony Danza, or is this Tony Micelli being Tony Micelli?
I don't
feel like
know.
this is Tony Micelli being Tony Micelli.
He has like 3 laundry baskets that are overfilled. It's fantastic.
Piled high. Filled with clothes. So Tony,
and yet he can still open the door. I would not be able to open the door.
I don't even know how he's holding all of these.
I don't know how he turned the doorknob.
Yeah. So he's carrying 3. He's come up from the basement with 3 packed laundry baskets. He can't see where he's going, and someone rings the doorbell. So then he grabs the door handle. I wonder if somebody helped him on the other side. Maybe Jesse helped open it, and they just made it look like he did it.
It was impressive.
He opens up the front door, and he's like, who is it? And Jesse says, it's me. And then he's like, yeah, that really narrows it down.
I know, it's kind of funny.
And so then he puts the laundry baskets down enough to be able to see that it's Jesse. So he's like, oh, hey, you want to talk to Sam? And he's like, I do, but first I want to talk to you. And I know, it is really cute here how much Jesse kind of bonded with Tony, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think in a real life situation, the last person you'd want to talk to is the father or the person that you dumped or whatever.
Exactly.
But that's just real life, and this is sitcom.
But also, he met Tony before he met Sam.
That's true.
So
Tony brought him home. That's true.
They had parsnips and peppers.
Sausage
and parsnips together.
Sausage and parsnips.
Yeah, they're pretty close.
Yeah, that's true.
And he's like, I guess Sam told you what happened last night. And Tony's like, yeah. And he's like, well, I really have no right to cast stones at Sam because I am not without sin myself. And now Tony's like, what? What do you mean? And Jesse says, I kissed Debbie Borofsky.
Oh, Debbie Borofsky.
Okay, so do you remember during the potato sack race? The Borofskys are who won the potato sack race.
Oh, that's right.
And I remember thinking, oh, that name sounds familiar, but I don't know why. And someone let me know that it was because Debbie Borofsky would be mentioned in this episode that we hadn't gotten to yet.
No, I just said Debbie Borofsky like it was
brand new to you.
Yeah. Oh. No, like I knew, but I didn't know.
Tony says, that's it? And he says, well, that was enough. I mean, Sam and I were going steady at the time.
All right.
And I don't know what came over me. Then he's like, actually, it was Debbie Borofsky. He says, she's kind of aggressive, but I guess I could have fought a little harder. And Tony's like,
and Tony says his D-bag.
I know. Oh, we do what we can.
We do what we can.
I know.
Well,
It's so
males.
sexist. Right.
We're males.
He was very upset with Samantha.
Someone makes out with you. Hey, oh.
Right. You do what you can, but sometimes you get kissed. And then what? So now I'm back to maybe Tony could have cheated because he got cornered. It wasn't his fault.
He did what he could, and he got attacked.
But he says, okay, well, this is great. So now, you guys kiss and make up and everything's fine.
No, not that simple.
Right. Jesse says, well, now I got to tell her the truth. And once I do, she may never want to talk to me again. And he's like, I got to be honest. And he's like, oh, yeah. Jesse says, don't you agree? And he's like, no. And he's surprised to hear himself say that. He says, Jesse says, I'm surprised you say that. And he's like, yeah, it kind of snuck up on me too. But now, what would make Tony think that Samantha was going to break up with him if Jesse said
Right.
Because she was hoping he would stay with her if, she told him the truth. Tony says this honesty thing is completely overrated. He's like, he says, especially if it comes to hurting Sam's feelings. But Jesse's like, no, I really think that it's important to be completely honest. And he's like, Tony says, Jesse, my boy, It's not all black and white.
Right.
There's many shades of gray, which is the line that he got from Angela earlier.
Right.
He says gray all over the place.
Gray all over the place.
I wonder if that was in the script or if that was a Tony Danza
Yeah,
line.
right.
So Samantha comes down the stairs and she's surprised to see Jesse there. She's like, oh, what are you doing here? He says, I have something to tell you. And Tony's like, no, come on, don't. And he's like, I just can't live with myself. And we know that Jesse can't lie because that's what happened to him in Car and Driver.
Right.
He was trying really hard to lie, but he couldn't do it.
Yep.
So he tells Samantha, listen, I can't blame you for kissing Mason because I've done the same thing.
I have two. He says, I have two.
Right, I have two.
And then she says, you kissed Mason.
You kissed Mason.
I mean, that would have been a twist.
Or that would
for
have.
Sure.
Like
what?
This would have made this show very groundbreaking.
Right. Very
if he
special.
left
Who's
Samantha
the boss?
for Mason.
Yeah.
So he says, when I went down to the Greenpeace rally, Debbie Borofsky cornered me between the tuna trawler and the fish gutting table. I don't know what a tuna trawler is, but I'm guessing it's somewhere you keep tuna.
Trawler. Yeah, I don't know.
He said, and we kissed. And then Tony's like, oh, it could happen to anyone in a romantic setting like that. Again, sexist, Tony, because you were pretty pissed off when it was Sam that you thought did the kissing.
Right.
Now, all of a sudden, it could happen to anyone. So she says, will you kiss Debbie Borofsky? And he says, yes. And she's like, well, that's wonderful. You're not perfect. You're just as rotten as I am. So these two people who have only been going steady for how many weeks have each kissed other people?
Yeah.
You may not be ready to go steady here, guys.
Not good at it.
Yeah,
you're not very good at it.
Let's rethink this. I don't think you read the steady handbook. Okay, so he's like, you're not mad? And she's like, no, I'm not mad. And then she's like, actually, I'm disgusted because it was Debbie Borofsky. All right.
Poor Debbie Borofsky.
I know. Like, we don't know anything about Debbie Borofsky.
She's getting raked through the coals.
Let's leave her alone here because we don't have all the facts. Okay. And she's like, all that matters is that you're back. So she's like, oh, Jesse. And he's like, oh, Sam. And then Tony's like, oh, gee. And he hugs both of them. Makes a little Jesse sandwich.
Oh, gee.
So later at some point, Tony's on the phone in the kitchen. Mason is gone, and he's talking to him on the phone. So he's like, oh, way to go, Mason. You aced all of your finals.
Of course he aced all his finals.
Yes. And he's like, oh, and the pollen count is down this week? What a great week.
Oh, I don't have any of this. That's funny.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when it fades up, it's Tony on the phone, and he's like hanging up with him.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he says that's really terrific.
Okay.
Stop by any time of the day. Okay. Bye-bye. He says, okay, Mace, bye-bye.
Yeah, that's what he says. It's stop by any time of the day, bye-bye, and he hangs up.
So you miss all the details of how Mason's week went.
Yeah, when you were saying that, I'm like, what? I remember that.
So Angela's asking how it went, and he's like, yeah, he smoothed things over with the football players. I feel like this experience with Sam really gave him the confidence to stand up to those guys.
All right. Oh, maybe. Yeah, I guess.
And he got a stun gun.
And he got stuffed. Yeah, right. And he's stuffed in a locker somewhere.
No, he got a stun gun.
I know, but even still, probably still got stuffed in a locker somewhere.
No, poor Mason.
Poor Mason.
Now, we won't see Mason anymore in this episode, but we will see Mason again for another episode in season 5.
Yeah.
So they're making pancakes. So you think this is Sunday? Is Angela going to eat 2 mornings in a row? She's going to be bloated.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, he says, I think the pancake's ready. Oh, no, she says the pancake is ready.
Mm-hmm.
He says this is time to pass on the old griddle. She's like, no, I can't. And he's like, yes, you can. You can do it. So she says, all right. So he gives her a little oven mitt, and she's like ready. She's like, it's all in the wrist action. And he's like, no, that's actually a common mistake. You get your height from the shoulder. Yeah. So she's like, okay. Then she says, batter up. And she's very proud of herself.
I know. Starts laughing. Batter up. Ha, 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 ha.
She thinks that's so funny.
And
Angela means business when she has her apron on. So she takes the griddle and she goes to flip the pancake. It goes straight up in the air. And do you think someone caught it? Like, how did they do this? I guess so.
There has to be somebody up there.
I know. There must be somebody up there on a ladder just waiting to catch the pancake. And so the pancake doesn't come down. And they're both kind of staring at the ceiling. So much like Angela's chopsticks, there's now a pancake on the ceiling of the kitchen.
The chopsticks.
And they freeze frame on the two of them looking up. Yeah. Now, I swear that I have seen a cut scene or a blooper or something here where someone, either the audience or the crew members, start chucking pancakes at both of them. And I don't know where I saw it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder about
if
that.
I find any, and I don't know what the story would have been behind it, like why they would have done that if they didn't actually use it in the episode. Or maybe it was a practical joke on Judith and Tony. I don't know. So if I find out any more, I will
I'd like
let
to
you
see
know.
that.
Okay, and that's it. That's the episode.
Yeah.
All right.
Finally, short one.
Not a short one.
I'm joking.
All right, you go first with rating. Or wait, did I go first last time?
I'd rather
Or
go
did you
first with rating.
Okay, great.
So I'm just
Go
going to
for
go. I give this a 7.5.
Nice.
7.5. I thought it was a good overall episode. I thought there was a lot of good, like, the storyline between, Samantha and Mason and Jesse was a good storyline. But, like, not overlying. I can't think of the word. Underlying, I guess, was between Tony and Angela,
Right.
which was great. Like how they would probably handle a relationship if they were actually in a relationship, which they're not.
Right.
But like, and how they were almost arguing like they were in a relationship.
Right,
And
yes.
I don't know, it was interesting. Like that, it just really like kind of, the story was very good.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the episode overall.
Great.
There wasn't a dull moment.
I also gave this a 7.5.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yes.
People are going to think we discuss it before.
I know we don't. I knew that's what I was going to give it before you said anything.
Yeah, I thought it was good.
I've always loved the Mason episodes.
Yes,
so
that too.
I love him as a guest star. And the same, like I thought it was cute because it kind of showed Tony and Angela sort of bickering. It really showed Angela too in a sweet role with Samantha. Like she comes in and she's trying to also give her advice. Like you can tell that Angela's very invested in Samantha's life at this point.
That's
which
true.
I think is really sweet.
That's a good point. Yep.
And, even though Jonathan, again, didn't really have much to do, the parts that he was in were really cute. I like that he kind of saw himself in Mason.
Yeah.
and liked that.
Yeah, and I actually like Mason and Jesse episodes separately as well as, and then together. And they're both very good actors.
Yes, they're great guest stars.
Yeah.
The other thing too, did I lose my thought? Oh, I was a bit annoyed with the whole like kissing Mason thing because I feel like they just had to put that in there to add drama where you really don't get the feeling that these two wouldn't be able to go steady for 3 weeks without kissing other people.
Right. Yeah, that's
who
true.
knows?
That's a good point.
Who's the boss around here? Me? Or my mother? Or maybe it's you?
I chose Samantha as the boss.
Really?
Yes, because so she makes a mistake. Tony gives her one piece of advice. Angela gives her another piece of advice. She decides to go with what she thinks is right, which is to be honest. And then it kind of backfires on her. But when Jesse comes back around, she understands that he made the same mistake she did, and then she takes him back.
All right.
Whether or not I'm still annoyed with the kissing part to begin with. But
yeah, I know that is.
But yes, I like that she kind of, I think she thought she may have made the wrong mistake by telling him, but I think deep down she really knew that she needed to be honest, and she accepted his response when he said that he kissed Debbie Borofsky and let it go.
All right. I went with Debbie Borofsky. No, I actually agree with you. I think it was Samantha as well.
Yeah. Okay, so that time you did just wait for me to say something, and then
I really wasn't sure. I mean, I had Samantha in the back of my mind. I thought maybe, but then I thought, well, maybe that's kind of stupid. But like when you actually said it and the way you described it, that actually makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it could be Tony.
I mean, who else could it be? I guess.
But see, then Tony, I feel like gives.
But Tony's arguing with Angela,
right? And then
they're not
gives
seeing
Jesse
eye-to-eye.
bad advice at the end by going
right, like not saying the truth, so you
Yeah.
can't pick him as the boss. So
It was a tough
Samantha is
one.
the correct choice for sure, and for all the reasons that you said.
All right, great. I like it when I'm right.
I know, me too.
Okay, you can reach us at Who's the Boss Podcast on Instagram, or go to Who's the Boss Pod 1 on Twitter. I mean, if you want to, I'm not really updating that anymore. I should just take the Twitter out
Twitter's
here.
kind of the cesspool of the
or
social medias.
On Facebook, we have a page called the Who's the Boss Podcast, or go to anchor.fm/WTB podcast, and there you can leave us a voice message. All right, so next episode, we are going to cover Housekeepers Unite.
Oh boy, I remember this episode.
Yeah, we watched this one pretty
we watched
recently,
it recently, so...
And then we have, and here's the other thing too. We are going to be going out of town, and we were going to try to get ahead, and I just don't think that's going to happen, unfortunately, and I'm very sorry.
I know.
So we're probably going to
Let's see what we can do this week.
Yeah, we might be able to get a couple done.
This is the last week before the trip happens.
Yeah, so if we can't, depending on what we get done this week, we may need to take about a month hiatus. 3 weeks.
That's horrible.
I know, to a month. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
If you like this podcast, please subscribe and give a big thumbs up and tell all your friends. And maybe you can tell your grandma, your mother, and your sister or brother. Maybe have no siblings. Tell your dog and cats. Bye.